This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to another week of Racing Across America. I'm Seth Maharo. Thanks for joining me this morning on the show. Mike Penna from the Horse Racing Radio Network. He returns. He was off last week down at the Jockey Guild meeting, but he has returned, and we'll take a weekly look back at some of the stakes action, three-year-old races, and also take a look at the Las Virgenes from Santa Anita going back to Saturday. Also coming up a little later on, Andy Serling. I'm going to reach out to him, and the game plan was to have him look at a little bit of racing today, but also I wanted to comment on some of the races on Saturday. Racing, if you haven't heard, if you didn't watch the Handicappers report earlier, Aqueduct is canceled for today. Parks is canceled for today, so we can't look ahead with Andy Serling, but hopefully we'll get him on and look back at some of the stakes action from this past weekend, because it was a good stakes day down at the Big A Aqueduct. So we'll keep our fingers crossed there and take a look back. Yesterday, Super Bowl, not much of a game, so hopefully you enjoyed some horse racing on the day yesterday, because again, there was some nice racing certainly all day long. There was some early post time, so tracks wrapped up early in order to get patrons home, on-track patrons home in time for the Super Bowl, but as it turned out, you really didn't have to do it was pretty much, I think that first play with the safety kind of set things up of where we were going. I said earlier on the Handicappers report, I don't think I've ever seen a team start off two halves as poorly as that. But it happens. It's football. And every once in a while, the Super Bowl lives up to the hype, and oftentimes it doesn't. And this was one of those times where it didn't. But as I say, there was some good racing yesterday. So as race fans, at least we had that going for us. Do want to remind you, we have turned the calendar page. All month long in January, there was a lot of great events put on by Capital OTB. They keep right on in February. Plenty of nice events that you can take part in, both online and right here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. There are knockout challenges. I do want to remind people, every Monday during the month of February, $100 knockout challenge down here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Also coming up on January 7th, there's going to be a Fan Appreciation Day, another Fan Appreciation Day on the 15th, the prize wheel down here at the Clubhouse Racebook on the 22nd. There are show Viver contests down here on the 15th and the 22nd. Show Viver, actually, check out capitalotb.com. A $500 happy hour bankroll on the 21st of February. Brian Nadeau will be in here administering that, and a Sunday Syndicate bankroll coming up a little more towards the end of the month on February 23rd. So again, plenty of good action online or right here at the Clubhouse Racebook all month long via Capital OTB. Don't forget the Knockout Challenge down here at the Clubhouse Racebook every Monday. That includes today. Although it's based on Aqueduct races, but I would think they'll shift it over to something else for this afternoon, the Knockout Challenge for this Monday. And don't forget, Bet 50, Get 50 continues through the month of February. If you're not yet a Capital Bets account holder, if you sign up, become a new account holder, the first $50 you bet in before the end of the month, Capital OTB puts $50 in your account. Free money, and you got to like that, because certainly any leg up you get in this game helps out. Coming up this weekend, certainly we'll touch on some of this as the week progresses, but out in Southern California, Santa Anita, a couple of stakes races we'll have to keep our eyes on. San Antonio Stakes coming up, again, this is this coming Saturday. Game on Dude, scheduled to make a return for Bob Baffert. Probably be the heavy favorite in that $300,000 9-furlong race, but that's the San Antonio. On Sunday, yesterday, Game on Dude worked in 48 flat, going 4 furlongs. Mike Smith will be riding in the San Antonio. They're looking at probably a small field, perhaps American Blend, Blingo, Blue Skies and Rainbows, and Majestic Harbor. Looking at potentially another small field coming up in the Bob Lewis $200,000 race for 3-year-olds out at Santa Anita. But this one's interesting because Midnight Hawk is scheduled to run, and that's the promising 3-year-old from the Bob Baffert barn. That one in Indianapolis are certainly attracting some attention out in Southern California. So we'll get another look at Midnight Hawk this coming Saturday in the Bob Lewis. Also scheduled for the Bob Lewis, Candy Boy, Cool Samurai, Diamond Bachelor, and El Nino Terrible. Midnight Hawk, along with working for Baffert yesterday. Again, Game on Dude worked. Also, Midnight Hawk did work. 1 minute .60 went Midnight Hawk in prep for this weekend's Bob Lewis. Not in the Bob Lewis, of course, is Shared Belief. Still have to keep our eyes on that one. Shared Belief on the West Coast, Honor Code on the East Coast, 3-year-olds that we certainly, again, have to pay attention to. I've said it before, said it all last week. When they get a little ding, a little straw in the path on the road to the Derby, until they get back and you can see them running, I think they're a little bit behind the 8 ball. Now, that said, Shug McGahee has moved towards the end of the week, or over the weekend it was announced, moved Honor Code over to Gulfstream Park so he could monitor him more closely. So Honor Code at least seems to be going in the right direction after getting put a little bit behind training-wise last week. So we'll keep our eyes out. These are clearly, probably 2 of at most the top 3. I don't know whether Honor Code or Shared Belief would dip much further than 3 in most people's polls. So very important contenders early on the Derby trail. We'll keep our eyes on them. And again, look for them to make it back to the racetrack. And at that point, we can assess where they are. But as things get delayed, until they make it back, it's always a little bit of a dicey proposition. Nice article by Jay Hovde in the Racing Forum at the end of last week. I'll tout you to go take a look at it. Only sour taste remains after horses depart Hollywood. And that the last horses did move out of Hollywood last week. Hollywood was still hosting training and still had horses in their barns there, but the last of those did move out last week. And so the end of Hollywood is here. The actual relationship to any kind of racing is now gone as the horses have moved out. But Hovde made some good points in his article. And again, I doubt you to check it out. There was comments by horsemen about the bittersweet nature of Hollywood closing, and over this last week, horses finally moving out. But Hovde also made some good points about having an ownership at an iconic and important track like that really weren't that interested in racing. Their game plan, they're more a real estate development company. The economy went a little south, and so they couldn't do the development they wanted to do until now. So the last 8 years or so, they've just kind of been holding on and not really putting an emphasis on racing. And as Hovde asked, who knows how many racing fans were soured by a visit to a tawdry, quote from Hovde, a tawdry Hollywood Park, or how many potential horse owners thrilled at the idea of playing in prime time were discouraged by virtually deserted stands on the biggest days of the meet. And he makes a good point. That's something that over the past few years I hadn't really thought about. But when you have ownership that isn't enthusiastic about the game, that then transfers to the front side as well. You don't get the fans, you don't get the same level of enthusiasm, and that is going to hurt promoting the sport, both among potential fans and among potential owners. So he makes a great point. Doug O'Neill quoted as saying in the article, it was very sad, very weird. Training at Hollywood Park was part of every day and a big part of our lives. And he was one of the last folks to actually move his horses out of the barns, the stables over at Hollywood. But Hollywood on the way out now, unfortunately. We've talked about it a bunch over the past a few months as Hollywood was aiming towards that last day and got to it. But really things, as I say, just wrapped up, really finalized last week when the last of the horses moved off the backstretch. There have been some notable jockey stories over the past year. Yesterday on Loose on the Lead, we had one of the prime stories. Gary Stevens visited us, and if you didn't get a chance to see that, I always do have to remind you, the OTB morning shows are archived on our YouTube channel. If you go to capitalotb.com, click on the YouTube link, there is a YouTube channel that has all those shows archived, and you can catch Gary Stevens yesterday. Very fun, entertaining. But of course, he was a great story on the jockey side, coming back from the retirement and moving right back into the top end of the game and doing so successfully. Down at Oaklawn so far at the meet, the resurgence of Norberto Arroyo, seeing him come back and kind of straighten himself out has been very interesting. Well, we'll have to keep our eyes on another guy. A name from the past of a guy that got off to a really good start in the career and then just has struggled over the past couple of seasons. Jeremy Rose, moving his tack to Turfway Park for the winter to kind of, as the headline says, rebuild stalled career. And Jeremy Rose, as I say, you go back, this kid was the Eclipse winning apprentice in 2001, based out in Maryland for a long time, and the regular rider of Preakness and Belmont winner Fleet Alex. That was back in 2005. So there was a few years there where this kid was really, I won't say top of the game, but very, very successful and seemed to be sitting on a pretty good career. We see it happen to jockeys all the time. You just, maybe a big client moves out of the game or whatever, or things, just circumstances happen, and you regress a little bit, and it's hard to kind of get your footing again. Jeremy Rose started his year down at Oaklawn, went 0 for 12 early in the meet. None of his mounts hit the board. He eventually changed things up, and as I say, going to be heading over to Turfway. Part of the move to do that is he picked up Jimmy McNerney as an agent and has gotten some support from, maybe more importantly, trainer Mike Maker. And Rose is quoted in the article as saying, geez, if you can get teamed up with Mike Maker, why not make the move? And I would agree. If you can get tied in with a good outfit, certainly that is going to attract a lot of attention and maybe be what he needs to jumpstart the career. Again, as I say, Norberto Arroyo down at Oaklawn at this meet has had a little bit of a career resurgence. And he was at Turfway for the first steps in what was the comeback for him. Norberto Arroyo actually been a guy who'd been in prison for a while, came out, got relicensed in Kentucky, and got things started at Turfway. Made that move to Oaklawn, and so far early in the meet is doing very, very well. So maybe Turfway's a nice place to get things back in gear, but as I say, going to be helped by being tied in with Mike Maker, no question about it. So we'll keep our eyes peeled here and see how Jeremy Rose does, because as noted, there was a period there where this kid was sitting on what looked to be a pretty good career, unfortunately got stalled, but heading over to Turfway to kind of gear things back up. And as we go to the first break, you're just going to ask the guys in the control room if we have that race or we don't have that race. We do not. Okay, we were going to look at a race, but we don't have that. So in lieu of that, I guess we will just go to the first break right now. Oh, I did want to mention, though, before we went to the first break, because we talked a little bit about it on Loose on the Lead yesterday, and I'll pull this up sometime during the week. Santa Anita yesterday, a very nice stakes race. Small field, but the Palos Verdes yesterday, grade 2 event, $200,000 purse, 6 furlongs. And it was notable because the return of Secret Circle, who last raced in the Breeders' Cup Sprint and won the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and also the return of Sierra Sky, who last raced in the Met Mile back in May of 2013 and won the Met Mile. So the return of a couple of top-class sprinters, but both of them get beat by Wild Dude. Wild Dude wins at 8-1 in that Palos Verdes yesterday for Jerry Hollendorfer, Rafael Bejarano on board. Secret Circle winds up running second as the 1-2 favorite. And Baffert thought Secret Circle just didn't see a late move by Wild Dude and didn't see the horse go by him until too late. Sierra Sky, on the other hand, runs fifth in the field of 5, never gets into the hunt as the 5-2 second choice. And Sierra Sky's trainer, Jerry Hollendorfer, said, I hope there's nothing wrong. We'll have to see. So they're going to check out Sierra Sky, I guess. It was a long layoff to come back from, but just never got engaged in there. So again, a short field, and we'll pull that up and watch it sometime during the week, because it was, again, the return of a couple of top-class sprinters out there in Southern California yesterday, and then both got upset. All right, we will head to our first break. As noted, we're going to come back, talk to Mike Penna, Horse Racing Radio Network, take a look back at some of the stakes action on the weekend. All of that right after this.
I'm Mark Cassano. Join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch. We'll inform, analyze, and welcome in the biggest names in racing. So join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch, right here on the OTB Television Network.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at capitalotb.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
Wagering at CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Capital Bet TV, the fastest and easiest online wagering experience where you can monitor 5 different tracks simultaneously. 2. Capital Bet Express. Its straightforward program layout and interactive handicapping information lets you build your wager quickly and efficiently. And 3. Capital Bet Pro, designed especially for the professional horse player. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
The Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back. That's right. The 2014 Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back, and it's your chance to win thousands in cash and prizes, and a seat at the 2015 Handicapping Championship in Las Vegas. This month's contest is the Shamrock Showdown on March 1st. So sign up today, online at capitalotb.com, or stop in at the Clubhouse Racebook.
I'm Anthony Mormino. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Monday morning. Monday morning means a visit from Mike Penn of the Horse Racing Radio Network. Although we missed Mike last week, tell us a little bit about where you were last Monday.
Hey, Seth, I was actually down in Florida. I was at the Jockeys Guild conference that they have each and every year. It was at the Westin Diplomat in Fort Lauderdale, just a couple of minutes from Gulfstream Park. And, yeah, it was a great conference discussing several issues facing riders. I was part of a panel that talked about jockeys marketing and promoting the sport, which I thought was very productive. And so many of the different things they discussed in terms of jockey safety over those 2 days really had an impact or could have an impact on the sport moving forward. So look for some of those things in the near future, some of those changes and some of those developments that were discussed. But trying to make it back from Florida wasn't too easy. I got back late Friday night. We were stuck in Fort Lauderdale for a couple of extra days because of the situation in Atlanta with the airport.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it wasn't the worst place to get stuck for a couple of days then.
Yeah, well, yeah, better there than make it to Atlanta and get stuck on the crossover. So yeah, that's not a bad deal. A couple extra days in Florida, I could use that myself. But I did read a little recap, and that sounded like a nice panel, jockeys and using them promotionally. I think it's a great idea, and it gets thrown out there constantly, really. And I think it's a great idea. I wish somebody would really jump on it. I mean, going back, and this is probably going back a ways, they had those little jockey trading cards that were kind of fun. There was that trading card series, and that kind of disappeared a little bit. And one thing I think would be interesting, they do it over in Hong Kong, I know, some kind of a jockey bet. Maybe it's just a daily kind of a thing where who has the best day or something, but somebody clever could come up with some kind of jockey-based wager, I think would be great.
Yeah, and I was quoted in the article on Blood Horse by Frank Angst as talking about jockeys being the face of the sport, and I really do believe that. You know, trainers as well, but I think even more so the jockeys, because you know they're really the Peyton Mannings and the Tom Bradys of the sport. People identify with them. They're kind of the rock star or the superstars that young people like children when they go to the racetrack always want to get a picture with the jockeys. They with the colorful silks and everything, and people really relate to them. Plus, they're around for a long time. Their careers are much longer than the equine superstars of our sport, so people can identify with them for a longer period of time. And if marketed properly, I think that could have a much bigger long-term effect and really bridge that gap that we're looking to reach to the younger audience in the sport.
Yeah, and you like I have been at Saratoga and seen the fans standing outside the jockeys' room and catching the jockeys either as they make their way to the paddock or that path that comes out of the clubhouse and goes to the jockeys' room, always lined with people, a lot of kids looking for autographs. And I agree, that is a great way to promote the sport. And yesterday on the show, we had Gary Stevens, and I mentioned to him, he's a prolific user of Twitter, and I said, do you think that's a great way to reach out and kind of promote the sport and reach fans? And he said, yeah, absolutely. And I agree, and he's somebody who, as I say, uses Twitter a lot, and it seems like more and more there are trainers and jockeys getting involved in that as well, using social media to reach out to the fans.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge social media person personally. I mean, I do it because of the radio show, but if it wasn't for the show, I probably wouldn't even be on there other than to follow my Pittsburgh Steelers players, and that would be about it. But I do see the impact that it has on so many people, and I think it's an important part. That's the way things have gone nowadays is on your phone and on the computer and all these different social media platforms. And I think it's all just one piece of the puzzle in terms of creating a grand marketing plan for the sport.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I'm not a big social media guy either, but I have to look for business purposes, essentially, to watch guys like Stevens and some of these trainers. But that said, I'm not involved. I know a lot of people are, so it's certainly a way to promote the game, no question about it. And Mike, before we move on and look at some of those stakes races, you mentioned your Pittsburgh Steelers. I got to get your opinion. Boy, that was not much of a game yesterday. And I said at the top of the show, I don't think I've ever seen a team get off the start of two separate halves as poorly as Denver did yesterday.
No, that could not have gone the way they were hoping for, obviously. It was a total disaster from the beginning. And, so much was made about Peyton Manning versus that Seattle defense. It was a complete mismatch. That defense took it to them right from the start, and they were very, very impressive. And being a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I've come accustomed to, watching great defenses, and this was as dominant a performance as I've ever seen in any game, and certainly in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it as a game, it was a disappointment unless you were a Seattle fan. If you're a Seattle fan, that was exactly what you wanted to see. But boy, it did not live up to the hype in any manner. And as you say, I think a lot of that was based on the Seattle defense, which just shut down Denver. And so we wait for next year, as it were. And as a Jets fan, I'm just reiterating what I've said for the last, 30-some years. We wait for next year. All right, let's take a look back at the weekend. Some nice three-year-old action, and we'll start out with that. First up, we're going to look at the Withers Saturday at Aqueduct. And boy, Mike, this was a ding-dong battle, and hats off to the New York bred program, because all the way around the track, Samrot and Uncle Si duked it out. Down the lane, we're going to watch number 5 Samrot get it done just over the number 1 Uncle Si. I was hoping for a little more from Scotland. I'm still maybe one race away from making up my mind on that one, just the way this race played out. But Scotland, for me, maybe a little bit of a disappointment, but no disappointment on the first two. And I think both of these will be fun to watch going forward.
Yeah, I think so, too. And you're right. They are both New York breds. They were the two favorites in the race, I think both going off at just about even money or so. You could really just separate them narrowly in terms of the wagering dollars. But these are two really good racehorses, whether they're New York breds, Kentucky breds, wherever it might be. They can really run. And I know that the final time maybe wasn't the quickest of the Wither stakes that we've seen in recent years, but as Dwayne Lucas always tells you, that time's only important when you're in jail. And Uncle Si really gutsy, digging in from the inside post. I thought he ran a really good race, and tip your hat to Samrat. I mean, here's a horse that obviously undefeated and just continues to show up each and every time that he goes to the track. So, yeah, really good effort. These are two horses that still need to be tested a little bit more, in my opinion. I don't look at, Scotland and Classic Jock and Roll, although they're nice horses. I don't look at them as being on par with some of the top 3-year-olds that are out there right now. So the strength of the Withers still in question. We'll see how they perform as the waters continue to get deeper as they make their way toward that first Saturday in May.
I will say this, though, and I agree completely. Final time doesn't jump off the page. But the buyer, I believe, was 93 and 92 for those. So the buyer figures, if you're a believer in that, and I am, I use the buyer figures, but legitimate numbers coming out of the race.
Yeah, and that's why I try not to put too much stock into time because, these racetracks vary from day to day, and, sometimes it's a little bit dull, sometimes it's a quicker track, and so you try not to put too much emphasis on the final running time, but more the way that the race was run and the way that these horses, the gameness that they showed through the stretch. And I thought both horses, Sam Rat and Uncle Si, really dug in nicely. Uncle Si never quit down toward the inside, and Sam Rat certainly wasn't going to let him by. So it was a really good performance from both horses, and again, we'll see as they continue to get tested just how good they really are.
Yeah, it was a fun show, no question. All right, let's shift down to Florida for Saturday's 3-year-old event, the Hutchison. And that was a grade 3 event, $200,000 purse, 7 furlongs. So this is more meant for 3-year-old sprinters, although it wouldn't shock me at all to see the winner try a little longer again. The winner in this race was Wildcat Red, coming out of the mile Gulfstream Park Derby, a near-miss second-place finish to be the only blemish so far on a 5-race career, and that was behind General A-Rod, just by a head that day. So Wildcat Red on the cutback looked very good. Did go off the 2-1 favorite under Javier Castellano, and Wildcat Red won pretty convincingly. I thought a pretty good effort from CZ to run second. To me, disappointing was Trailblaze for Todd Pletcher, who had won pretty convincingly in the career debut and then was a disappointing fourth in the spectacular bid. Now has put together maybe a couple of disappointing finishes. And I'm just not sure, I've said this a couple of times already over the past couple of days, I'm not sure what to make of Mighty Brown, who 2 races back in the Pasco looked very good, and I thought would be one that would be interesting to watch on the Triple Crown Trail. Then for some reason they choose to go up and try him in Ocala, which I found a funny choice to begin with, and they follow that up running an absolute dud on Saturday. So Mighty Brown, it's a head-scratcher to me. What that race in the Pasco, where did that one come from? But again, we're watching the stretch run here. Wildcat Red, pretty impressive.
Yeah, very impressive, and a horse that even with a sprint-oriented pedigree, being tied to Wildcat, doesn't scream mile and a quarter, certainly, and you wouldn't expect that he's going to be a factor, a major factor, as the distances get longer. But when you look at what he did in his last race, the Gulfstream Park Derby, getting beat just ahead that afternoon, and then to cut back to a sprint distance where we know that he excels, a horse that I think is going to be better suited to shorter distances, but he certainly looked the part on Saturday afternoon, going to 7/8 of a mile.
Yeah, and as I said, this, and I agree, this one, it seems more like a sprinter, but it's that time of year, and given the fact that they took a shot and just missed going a mile in the Gulfstream Park Derby, won't shock me if they give this one at least one more shot and see what they have as far as stretching out a little bit. But this does seem like a horse that maybe should be aimed for some of those nice 3-year-old sprint stakes later in the year. But Wildcat Red gets it done. On the east coast of Florida, over on the west coast of Florida on Saturday afternoon, it was the Sam Davis Grade 3 event for $250,000, going a mile and a 16th. And this was a fun battle, too, although I'm not sure what the talent level is coming out of this. Vince Ramos is going to just get it done over stablemate Harpoon. Vince Ramos, Edgar Prado on board, 12-1. Harpoon 9-5 in here. The favorite, Noble Cornerstone, threw in an absolute dud. Subsequently, Kent DeSormo said the horse freaked out in the gate and just never got into it, and that's the truth. The horse just never did get into it. I was really looking forward to see the return of Noble Cornerstone coming out of that Remington Park Springboard Mile, but we just got nothing as a barometer on that one. However, we're going to watch the stretch run here. It will be Harpoon swinging very wide for Todd Pletcher, who will just miss catching Vince Ramos, who gets the crafty ride up the rail for Edgar Prado. So it's a Pletcher exacta in here. Vince Ramos now live for that $1 million bonus down at Tampa, which would include the Tampa Bay Derby and the Kentucky Derby. Your thoughts on the Sam Davis?
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said crafty ride. Edgar Prado is in the Hall of Fame for a reason, and he really did give this horse a tremendous ride down toward the inside. And he was quoted after the race as saying that you didn't want to make the lead too early with this horse because he tends to wait on horses. So he's much better when you have a target to run at. And Vince Ramos originally was up there dueling for the lead, and as they entered the far turn, you could see Edgar Prado take the horse back just a little bit and back off the horses that were making their move. And to me, it looked like the horse might have been done at that point, but then to find out afterwards that was all by design, trying to keep him in behind horses so he could have a target to run at as they turn for home, was absolutely brilliant. And tip your hat to Edgar Prado for having the savvy to be able to pull off a performance like that. I think moving forward, I may like Harpoon a little bit better of the two, even though he was beaten on Saturday afternoon. He really did come flying. You mentioned the wide trip. He's a horse that has a lot of talent. He has now never been worse than second in 5 lifetime starts, and he's probably the one that I would side toward coming out of that race. Noble Cornerstone, as you mentioned, had that absolutely disastrous beginning, never got involved. He's better than what he showed on Saturday. We'll see how he performs going forward. We'll give him another shot.
Yeah, I definitely want to see him because I was looking forward to that race. So certainly want to give him one more. And it's funny. I think a lot of people are probably coming out of this race liking the second place finisher better than the winner. And one thing, and I didn't get a chance to do it yet, but I want to go back and look at the Trackus numbers and see how much more ground Harpoon covered.
Yeah, absolutely, because he definitely had the wider of the trips. I mentioned Edgar Prado being able to stay down toward the inside with the eventual winner, but Harpoon had to take the overland route, and I think that cost him certainly the victory because it was so close at the finish. One more jump and he gets up and wins it, but it definitely cost him so much ground in here. He was probably best.
Yeah, so an interesting addition. And again, it's when we're on that point in the trail where some of these races, and that includes probably the Withers and this one, a little bit of a barometer race. We have some horses that certainly now have legitimized themselves to go forward, but I don't think, certainly not in the way Cairo Prince did last week. They haven't stamped themselves necessarily as valid Triple Crown contenders, but they're going to be interesting to watch going forward, certainly at this point. All right, let's take a look now out at Southern California and shift divisions a little bit. Go to the Las Virgenes Grade 1 event for 3-year-old fillies. This is a mile on the dirt. The favorite in here was Even Money Streaming. 2 for 2 so far in the career going into this for Bob Baffert. The nice maiden breaker at Hollywood followed it up with a win in the Grade 1 Hollywood Starlet. Streaming is going to wind up running second here behind the number 2 Fashion Plate. We had Gary Stevens on yesterday, and Gary thinks Fashion Plate is going to be very, very interesting going forward. Finally broke the maiden last time. That was the first start on dirt with a start at Santa Anita. So maybe this horse, a little bit of a horse for a course, also maybe does like the more conventional dirt. The first 2 starts were on synthetics, but Fashion Plate, the number 2 horse, will get it done here at 9-2. Streaming second at Even Money. Arethusa runs third at 10-1. Your thoughts coming out of the Las Virgenes?
Yeah, when we talked about the Withers, we talked about not worrying about the final time and just worrying about the way horses, how they visually looked, and did they dig in, did they show some gameness and some heart through the stretch? Well, Fashion Plate did that. She got to the front under Gary Stevens. It was a really nice ride from him. And then when she was tested by Streaming, who we know is a tremendous Grade 1 winner, she's very, very talented, and she came at her, made her run, and Fashion Plate was not going to let her by. So that really showed me something. And you're right, I think that she is better on traditional dirt. Her first 2 tries on synthetic at both Del Mar and Hollywood Park, respectively, they were okay. The second one more than the first one, but she's certainly a different horse on regular dirt, which is going to bode well if she's going to make her way toward the Kentucky Oaks. I do like her. I like her pedigree by Old Fashioned out of the Sid Dancer mare. I think she will stretch out. You could say that she needs to learn to settle and to rate a little bit, but we said the same thing about Beholder last year, and we see how that turned out for her. So she's probably a free-running horse with a high cruising speed, and I do think that she's going to be a factor moving forward.
Yeah, the 3-year-old filly division, which we haven't really concentrated on that much so far, but certainly I think it is shaping up to be very nice as we head into the Oaks as well. So I think a couple of nice divisions there, 3-year-old fillies and the 3-year-old boys, kind of entertaining so far, and we'll hope they hold together. On that note, certainly, a week and a half or so ago, Shared Belief was in the news a little bit, and now Honor Code maybe seems to be behind the 8 ball a little bit. What are your thoughts on Honor Code?
It's kind of a shame to see him, have to work from behind now if they're going to continue with him. But look, the cupboard is not dry for Shug McGahee. We know how his 3-year-olds have performed, and we know that this is a guy that can get a horse ready for the Kentucky Derby. And I participate in a Derby poll at the Courier Journal, and he has his horse Top Billing, who was very, very impressive in winning an allowance race this past week and is going to make his way down the Derby trail. And to be honest, I think that this is a horse that I jumped off to me. So many times we're looking for that wow performance at this time of the season, and it came from Top Billing. He's really, really nice, and he does things the right way. He does come from off the pace, but if you watch his races, he puts himself in a position to win by the time they hit the quarter pole, which for a closer to be able to do that is very, very important and very impressive. So I think Top Billing may be the one that I'm keeping an eye on moving forward.
Yeah, I know. I didn't see this week's poll yet, but I know last week's the initial poll. Jenny Reese had Top Billing as her number one horse.
Yeah, and why not? I almost did that as well. I kind of debated it, and I said, no, I'm going to give the edge to the proven stakes horses in here, and I went with Honor Code on top, and he remains on top this week so far, but I wouldn't argue with the people that put Top Billing up there because he's been the horse to me that's had that wow performance so far.
Yeah, so that race last weekend certainly opened up a lot of eyes, no question about it. And if push comes to shove, Mr. Speaker can also come back to the dirt for Shug as well. He said going back to the turf, but still, things get a little light if Honor Code's behind the 8 ball, Mr. Speaker's always floating out there as well. Mike, before we let you go, let's go back and let people know HRRN this past week, what's available on the archive. Saw you guys had an interview with Javier Castellano, who, of course, was on Wildcat Red on that Hutchison win over the weekend.
Yeah, that was a really fun interview, and I can't thank everybody at the Jockeys Guild enough for inviting me down to speak at the conference. I also had a chance in between the sessions to talk with so many of the riders, and we sat down one-on-one for some really, really unbelievable interviews, and Javier was one of those. He talked about his Eclipse Award-winning season and what's still driving him and what still motivates him, and it was really interesting to hear his thoughts on those things, and of course talking about that night when they called his name as the Eclipse Award winner was pretty special. Next Saturday morning on our Equine Forum from 8 to 10, that's one that people won't want to miss. I'm going to be focusing the entire show on those interviews that I had at the Jockeys Guild, and Ramon Dominguez sat down and talked with me for an extended interview, and he was absolutely unbelievable. John Velasquez and I sat down and talked for a while. That was tremendous. Sheldon Russell sat down with me, and all of those interviews are going to be played back. Terry Meeks, who is in charge of the Jockeys Guild, is going to be with me for the entire show to help discuss some of these issues after we play the interviews. So that's one that people won't want to miss.
Oh, nice. Very nice. And as I mentioned earlier, had Gary Stevens on yesterday, and he was really gracious about the Eclipse Award. He was up, and some voters were tilting in Gary Stevens' favor for the Eclipse Award. It wound up to be Javier Castellano, but as I say, Stevens yesterday, very gracious, saying, I had a fun year. It was great to be up for the award. It would have been fun to win it, but I always would have thought in the back of my mind, was it just because I was the 50-year-old making the comeback? And the fact of the matter is Javier Castellano had a very, very good year. So as I say, classy response from Gary Stevens. Just another one of those. I said at the top of the show, there were a lot of great jockey stories last year. So this weekend's show will certainly be one I'll tune into, whether live or, again, you can always catch up with the Horse Racing Radio Network programs on the archive as well. Mike, always appreciate the visit. Thanks for the look back at the stakes action from this past weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Seth.
Mike Penna from the Horse Racing Radio Network. We'll take our next break. When we come back, I got a couple of races. I'm going to look at some of those undercard stakes at Tampa. We'll take that little segment and look at some races. And then coming up in a few minutes, Andy Serling from the New York Racing Association. We'll get some of his thoughts on Aqueduct's weekend action after this.
Only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today. Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Again, as noted before the break, just going to take a look at a couple of the undercard stakes. It was a 3-stakes program at Tampa on Saturday, highlighted by the Sam Davis. Don't know whether we'll get a chance to look at these undercard stakes otherwise, but a couple of nice stakes, one of them being for 3-year-old fillies. And as noted when I talked to Mike Penna, this 3-year-old filly division is shaping up to be kind of fun as well. Wouldn't shock me to see the winner of the Suncoast down at Tampa on Saturday progress and be maybe a little bit of a player in the division. I don't know how much of a player, but coming out of this race, I think Please Explain is kind of interesting. We will watch the stretch run of the Suncoast. Please Explain for Tommy Proctor, the number 1 horse. Number 3, Nesso. They will finish 1-2. And Please Explain makes a rail trip that's actually pretty similar to Vince Ramos in the Sam Davis. Saved the ground, came up the rail, but winds up running away from these in a little bit of a different scenario than the Sam Davis. There's a bunch of them kind of crowded at the end. But Please Explain, the 3-2 favorite, gets it done. Nesso just gets up to just holds on to be second in here. Nesso came out of the prep for this, the Gasparilla, a nice win at Tampa on the move from Southern California. Had raced Del Mar, Santa Anita, and Hollywood before coming back to the East Coast and racing in that Gasparilla last time, had won that. So Nesso, the 2-1 second choice. So it was the favorite over the second choice in here, but clearly the favorite, much the best in this field. Please Explain, again, for Tommy Proctor, Julian Leperot on board, saving the ground around the turn and getting it done. That one could be, as I say, a 3-year-old filly, could be a little bit interesting to watch in the division. And then we'll move on to the Tampa Bay Stakes, which was on the grass at 1 1/16, Grade 3 event for 4-year-olds and up, $150,000 purse. The winner is going to be the number 1, Guy's Reward for Dale Romans. Salto will run second. Salto was the 1-2 favorite. Guy's Reward 14-1. And again, Guy's Reward is the number 1 horse. And as you see there, total back of the pack by the Chicklets. Guy's Reward saves some ground here. We'll shift out and we'll make a nice run down the stretch. Last to first, top of the stretch, you have to think the favorite Baffert Salto has this one in the bag. But a nice late move from Guy's Reward to get it done. Again, 14-1, a little bit of an upset there. Salto coming out of a second place finish over at Gulfstream in the El Prado, and Guy's Reward coming out of a 10th place finish in the El Prado, hence the odds. But that El Prado was run over a yielding course, so that the track condition may have played into the finishing positions that day. Guy's Reward, though, you have to go back a ways before you can really find anything to hang your hat on with a whole lot of confidence. So that 14-1 probably held up, but maybe this is a horse that now is moving in the right direction. So in the turf division, this is down in the Grade 3 area, but in these kind of races, Guy's Reward could be a little bit interesting to keep our eyes on going forward as well. So there we go. A couple of looks at, as I say, the undercard stakes from Tampa on Saturday. And as the week goes along, we'll take a look at some of the other stakes action. And again, I had a race earlier. We'll try to get this one for sometime later in the week as well. Sunbeam, a horse we talked about quite a bit last year at about this time of the year as a horse down there at the fairgrounds that was going to be interesting to watch as a 3-year-old. And Sunbeam was a Louisiana bred. Stepped out into open company a few times and wasn't so successful, but With the Louisiana breds, this horse just eats them up. And Sunbeam got it done Saturday night down at Delta Downs in the Louisiana Bred Premier Night Championship Stakes. $200,000 purse, set a new stakes record, broke the stakes record that was set by the very talented Star Guitar. So Sunbeam, who when we were watching this horse last year was trained by Al Stahl, subsequently moved into the barn of Mike Maker, has had a change again. But Sunbeam, as a 4-year-old Louisiana bred, boy, this horse is in state-bred company. It's just an absolute win machine and has won now over $400,000. So it's one of those horses. That Louisiana bred program is fun. And we've been able to watch. Bill Mott had a very nice Louisiana-bred turf runner that he would bring around. I'm blanking on the name now, but they would ship down for these nice stakes nights occasionally and do very well. So these Louisiana breds are kind of fun to watch on the state bred level. And again, we'll try to pull that race up maybe a little later in the week. All right, we'll take our next break. When we come back, hopefully we'll reach out to Andy Serling from the New York Racing Association. No racing there this afternoon. They have canceled, but maybe we'll get some of his thoughts on the nice stakes action that was held Saturday down at Aqueduct. All of that right after this.
I'm Jeff Carl. Join me Saturdays and Sundays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the weekend in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekends at 9, only here on the OTB TV network.
I got it. Watch me. I got it. Hey! I got something that makes me want to shout. I got something that tells me what it's all about. I got a move that tells me what to do. If you don't, brothers and sisters, then you won't know what it's all about.
Hey, race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook and get in the game. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, fantastic food and drinks, an amazing Vegas-style atmosphere with seating for nearly 900 of your closest friends. Conveniently located at 711 Central Avenue, right off Exit 5 of I-90 in Albany, the Clubhouse Racebook is the better choice.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
This is Steve Beck. Join me Tuesday through Saturday here on OTB TV for At the Races, my Sirius XM daily news magazine of the thoroughbred industry. Handicapping, interviews, analysis, everything you could want. 6 a.m. OTB TV.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Still trying to reach out to Andy Serling, and as they are off today, he may not be in the office, certainly, but we'll give a couple more attempts. In the meantime, nice article by Marty McGee. Marty McGee down at Tampa Bay over the weekend covering the Sam Davis, and he wrote a nice article focused on Tampa Bay for the Daily Racing Forum. Simulcast bettors have helped make track a major winter signal. I would tout you on that because certainly it's one of my favorite tracks to play in the wintertime, along with Oaklawn. A lot of value there. All right, we are joined now by Andy Serling of the New York Racing Association. Andy, no racing at Aqueduct this afternoon. Has the weather started down there?
Oh yeah, no, it started early.
Did it really?
I got to pay more attention to the weather forecast. I actually thought we were going to be able to race 5 days this week. Imagine my surprise.
Well, we had Grenig on with us yesterday, and he said there was a little something in the forecast, and he mentioned, maybe you'll have to keep your eyes, but he didn't seem to sound like it was really imminent either. And I know we're looking for some weather up here upstate tomorrow sometime, but you've canceled and Parks has canceled, which made me think something has already happened. So it's already snowing?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I actually got up sort of early, and early for me at least, and it was already snow on the ground. Oh yeah, geez, oh wow, there's there's a roof deck across my apartment. There's about 3-4 inches of snow out there.
Oh, okay, well, all right.
What happened yesterday? Well, those people were at the Super Bowl. 50-degree weather. What's up with that?
That's funny because I think everybody who didn't go to the game wished it was a lot colder and snowing. It was kind of evil, but
I was first glad I wasn't at the game. After that, I wished it was cold.
And as it turns out, people could have left at halftime anyway. So people could have left after the first quarter, as it turned out. So it wouldn't have been that bad. But Andy, with no racing today, obviously we won't talk about this afternoon. But I did want to go back. Nice day of stakes races on Saturday, and I wanted to get your thoughts on some of those. Go back and we'll look at the stretch run of the Withers, and I pulled up the Mike Watchmaker column from the Racing Forum. I'll quote out of it. From a pure entertainment standpoint, one of the best pieces of racing theater we've seen in a while, and it certainly was a ding-dong battle. The two New York breds, Sam Rott and Uncle Si. What were your thoughts on the Withers?
Yeah, no, I would concur with Mike. I thought it was just a terrific, entertaining race. Two horses that really laid it out in the line and ran well the whole way around this racetrack, demonstrating that contrary to seemingly the belief of a lot of riders or connections or whomever, horses can actually go fast early and continue to run well during the race. And using a horse's speed as a weapon sometimes plays into a horse's strength. I mean, both these horses ran very, very well, and that was just a terrific race. And the initial inclination is always to be, I don't really think these are Derby horses, and I don't think anybody's saying they're absolutely going to win the Derby or anything, but I think it's fair to say they ran a race on Saturday that was as good, if not better, than basically anything we've seen so far from 3-year-olds. And with Shared Belief, we don't know what's going on with him because he's had some issues and hasn't really been working. And we've seen Cairo Prince, and he was impressive, but I'm not sure that Cairo Prince's race was any more, if more impressive than this. And I'm not saying, once again, these are my two picks for the Derby. But from what we've seen so far, these two belong at least as part of the discussion.
Yeah, and Watchmaker actually makes a very similar case. He kind of draws a line through Scotland, draws a line through classic Jack and Roll, and gets back to Cairo Prince, and also looks at the buyer numbers coming out of Saturday. A couple of legitimate numbers for the two top finishers in here. So I think they're both, again, it's early in the season. I think we're in kind of the barometer situation for a lot of horses, but I think they're both going to be fun to watch going forward.
No question. They run like this, they'll always be fun to watch. And, if you look at the race from a final time figure, it's a 94. If you look at it from a pace-adjusted figure and you look at the time form U.S. numbers, it's an even better race because this was not a slow pace. These horses were running, for that racetrack. And if you look at, comparable paces at the distance, they were 2 seconds faster than the pace in the very, very slow Busher. But these horses, they ran very well. Whether or not they're mile-and-a-quarter horses, or whether or not they're going to beat the tougher horses when the chips are down, we'll see. But right now, there's no reason not to be optimistic.
All right, on the 3-year-old filly side, and I said earlier, obviously this time of year the focus is on the 3-year-old boys, but I think this 3-year-old filly division around the country is kind of shaping up to be fun as well. On Saturday, you had the Busher down at Aqueduct, $100,000 for the 3-year-old girls, going a mile and a 16th. We'll watch the stretch run here. Now the favorite, 8-5 going off, was Bally Lee, second-time starter from Albatroni and Darley. When the real running started, number 5 Bally Lee just didn't have any answer. But coming from way back, number 1 Joint Return for John Service, and this was impressive on the big sweeping move and off of the slow fractions as well. This was pretty impressive for Joint Return.
Not to me.
No? Okay.
Well, visually impressive races. That's fine, but it was, to me, it was an ugly race. Bally Lee might be okay, but she didn't break particularly well, and she was forced to make a middle move and was never in a good position. I don't know that she's that good a horse, and we'll see if she turns out to be okay. But you're talking about a race that was over 2 seconds slower than the Withers was, and I don't want to. Listen, I'm not trying to be critical of the horse that won. I'm trying to be objective about the entire race. And objectively, none of these horses at this point can be considered serious contenders in the division. On the other hand, we're not seeing exactly the fastest division in the world. I do think that a horse for Bobby Flays was very impressive, winning an allowance race at Gulfstream on Friday, named Dame Dorothy, that broke her maiden on Cigar Mile Day. I think we saw a couple of horses run very well in the Silver Bullet Day at Fairgrounds a couple of weeks ago, 2-year-old fillies. One, the winner, a daughter of Lemons Forever, who won the Kentucky Oaks. We didn't see a Kentucky Oaks horse, much less the winner of the Kentucky Oaks, out of this race.
But again, I thought closing into the slow pace, I would give the nod to the winner. The horses behind, I'm
Oh,
not too.
no one else can run in that race.
I'm not sure what, but I think Joint Return is another one will be interesting to watch going forward. All right, let's talk a little 3-year-olds before we let you go. At this point in the season, who are maybe your two top 2 or 3 3-year-olds?
You know, Seth, it's not a game that I really play that much because what does it matter? It's not like I'm making a bet on these horses or I bet races 3 months in advance. I mean, I don't think I would argue with a lot of the same horses that other people are looking. I mean, obviously, Shared Belief out west is one of the better-looking 2-year-olds we saw last year. But being that he hasn't been able to get the track seemingly to work yet, it's hard to be overly optimistic about him. Though obviously, if he gets his act together, he's going to do well. In all likelihood, assuming he handles the dirt. But that's also a big question. And, you know, the horses down in Florida, I've always liked Cairo Prince. And, you know, Honor Code seems to be pushed back a little bit. So we don't know where he is. I'm not sold on top billing like everybody else is yet, but I don't think it's unfair to say that he has a chance to be one of the better 3-year-olds this year. I'm looking forward to seeing, a number of horses race. I want to see Strong Mandate run. I think Strong Mandate, the horse who he finished 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and, of course, won the Hopeful. I think it's a very good horse for Wayne. I'm not overly concerned with his ability to get a distance, and I think he's got a world of talent. So I think he's a horse that some people are talking about and some aren't, but I think he should be talked about. But it's hard at this point, you know. What's interesting so far is I don't think that we're talking about any of these exciting Todd Pletcher horses yet at this point, you know. And there's no Verrazano right now, a horse that had a huge win. I know some people like the horse of his whose name escaped me, Hartford. But I don't think he ran particularly fast when breaking his maiden, though he could turn out to be okay. But I think the usual suspects are still the same horses right now.
Well, you got Vince Ramos and Harpoon from Fletcher.
If they win the Kentucky Derby, I wear the dunce cap on Sunday, I'll cement it to my head. You know, I thought my friend Nick Tamaro made a good point about that race. In the old days when they used to run non-winners of 1 for 3-year-olds, that's what that race might have looked like. It was not an aesthetically pleasing race.
And you mentioned Verrazano just before we go. How about Verrazano going to Europe next year?
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap myself around that one. Was there no interest in breeding to him in America? Is that what happened? I mean, I don't know the story. It seems. I mean, to me, I don't have any money, and I'm not a breeder or anything. But he seemed kind of a sexy horse to me. He can go long. He had speed. He won some big races. I know he's got some pedigree for turf, but I'm confused. They're going to really bring him over to Europe and expect him to be competitive in those turf races? Why wouldn't they just leave in America and try to win a race like what's the stake at Keeneland before the Bluegrass? The race that Wise Dan wins every year.
Yeah.
Is that the Shadwell, or is the Shadwell in the fall? That's the Shadwell or the Maker's Mark. Maker's Mark 46. Good luck to him. I think it's fun. I hope he does well. I hope he's more aggressive on the turf, because when the chips were down here in America, he didn't seem to finish up that well, right?
Yeah, that was a head scratcher to me as well. Off of that Haskell win, you'd think there would certainly be a little bit of interest over here, no question about it. But we'll see what happens next year. All right.
Yeah, I was surprised, but I wonder if there's more to the story. But whatever, I'm always glad they're racing.
Well, anytime there is a head scratcher, I always assume there is more of a story, but we're never going to hear it. Yeah. So, all right, Andy. As always, appreciate the visit. And again, we're at the shortened week, so next racing is Friday, right?
Yeah, we're racing Friday. We'll be if you're in New York, we'll be doing a Gulfstream Talking Horses here on the NYRA Network here in New York. But we're not racing live again until Friday with a 4-day week, every weekend this month of February.
All right, so we'll get back on track with Aqueduct on Friday. Andy, appreciate the visit. We'll talk to you again.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
All right, Andy Serling from the New York Racing Association. A little earlier, it was Mike Penna from the Horse Racing Radio Network, all of which kicked off this week on Racing Across America. We're going to wrap things up for this morning. Racing Across America is here every Monday through Friday from 10 until 11 a.m. A little earlier, it was Anthony Mormino and I on the Handicappers Report. Hopefully we gave you some good ideas. So cash some tickets this afternoon. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.